Hello and thank you for watching. My name is Dan Heber and I'm the admin of Pedagogical Memes on Philosophical Themes, and this video is in response to a follower request. I have recently started this series of images that were showing pictures of some of the books on my bookshelves in response to a follower request. And in the comment section of one of those recent pictures, there was a follower, Bertolt Reiner, who had asked, I'll just read this here, to ask me to give a list of essential readings on different topics that influence your philosophical thinking. And I've decided to respond to that. I've received similar requests in the past, so I thought I would just address them all in one video, or at least attempt to address them in one video. And rather than talking about books that influenced me, I was going to talk about some books that impacted me, and I was going to break that impact down into professional impact and personal impact. And so I have 6 books on my desk, so we'll go just 3 of each here, 3 from the professional impact and 3 from the personal impact. The first one of professional impact, this book right here, Kant's Critique of Pure Reason. This is in the professional impact category, and it's in the professional impact category because I can't imagine doing what I do without having, read this book, studied it at the graduate level. The Kant's Critique of Pure Reason, of course, I don't need to give a review of it here or talk about the contents of it to this audience. I do prefer the Kemp Smith edition, by the way. Kemp Smith translation, by the way, but this book is, for what I do in teaching philosophy classes at the college and university level. The graduate seminar that I had in Kant has been of the most value to me in terms of what I do every day. And there is, the text itself is notoriously difficult, and there is something tremendously satisfying about, this coming to the end of a course, the end of a text, and having a firm grip of exactly what it is that the author was talking about. At least I hope that's what I achieved through my study of the book. So this is number 1 for professional impact. Another book from the professional impact stack that I have here, and of course these are going to be no real surprise for what I do in my day-to-day life, which is teach philosophy. Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, and I prefer the Terence Irwin translation. Again, this book, which is quite old and yellowed now, I don't know how well that's going to come across in the video, but similar to Kant's Critique, Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics is something that I, reference almost every day that I teach, whether I'm teaching, standard philosophy classes or courses in ethics, obviously. And part of the beauty of Aristotle is his abundant clarity, with the exception of a couple of footnotes that are now notorious. But what Aristotle does is he just latches on to a topic and refuses to let go until he's arrived at some degree of clarity at the issue. And it really speaks to a person's philosophical ability, and it's a good lesson to learn as you're learning philosophy to just be so laser focused on one topic and to not let go until you've achieved clarity. So I really like Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics for that reason. Well, I like Aristotle in general for that reason, but I'm particularly sympathetic to the Nicomachean Ethics. And the last book from what I'm labeling here as professional impact, I'm going to bring it up and talk about it in terms of negative impact. And the reason why it was negative impact was that it taught me what I wasn't good at. Whenever I was in graduate school, this is a book titled Vagueness by Timothy Williamson. And I think this was for a third year course as a graduate student. I took a seminar that was just titled Vagueness. It was taught by Teresa Robertson, who's now teaching at the University of California at Santa Barbara. And again, I'm a third-year graduate student at this point. I'd already had a graduate seminar in Wittgenstein. I'd already had a graduate seminar in Russell, and I had taken an intercession course on axiomatic set theory, and I had already taken a 600 level 600 level course in logic at the time that I took a graduate seminar in vagueness. And this book destroyed me and altered the course of my graduate studies. This is the book that let me know that I was far out of my depth. I had done very well in the Wittgenstein seminar. I had, even delivered a paper at a graduate school conference that was that came from that. I had done very well in the Russell seminar that was taught by Sarah Sawyer, who's now at the University of Sussex, and she's I think vice chair of the Royal Institute of Philosophy. So she really knew her stuff. And I had done very well in those courses, and I thought I was going to do well. I thought I was tacking toward hard analytic philosophy, and whenever I got to this book, this graduate class, it really set me on the straight and narrow and let me know that I was out of my element, and it altered my coursework in graduate school as a result of reading this book. The first few chapters were fine because it was dealing with the history of the Sorites paradox, but then about 4 or 5 chapters in, it started getting into chapters about supervaluation and many-valued logics and fuzzy logic, and I was so out of my depth, and I just found it so incoherently complex to understand that, again, it did alter the direction of my graduate studies. So this one definitely impacted me, but not in a positive way. So now, books that impacted me sort of on the personal level. And the first book I'm going to be bringing up here and talking about is Thomas Kuhn's Structure of Scientific Revolutions. This book is one of the books that really solidified my attitude toward philosophy as an undergraduate student. This was one of 2 books that were used in a philosophy of science class that I took, and it was this Structure of Scientific Revolutions and Sir Karl Popper's Logic of Scientific Discovery. And the book by Popper, Logic of Scientific Discovery, it always felt like homework whenever I was reading that. And of course it was homework. I was reading it for a class. But this book here by Kuhn, it did not feel like homework. It was a delight to read. I loved reading it, didn't always agree with them, but you don't have to agree with somebody in order to enjoy what they're saying. And it really, it was an approach to philosophy that I hadn't seen, and I thoroughly enjoyed. I enjoyed it for its content. I enjoyed it for its presentation. Absolutely loved this book, and it made me feel good about my choice to major in philosophy as an undergraduate. Number 2 from the stack of books here that I'm talking about that had a personal impact on me is this book here. This is Julian Marias's, I think I'm pronouncing that, Julian Marias. I was getting the accent mark wrong. His History of Philosophy was one of those books that impacted me on the personal level, and this was actually recommended to me by the professor that I had that taught the course in philosophy of science. A guy by the name of Joseph Martiri did his PhD studies at Georgetown, I think. And one of the reasons why he recommended this book was he said it's good to get a perspective from outside of your own culture. And I had read Bertrand Russell's History of Philosophy. I think History of Western Philosophy is the title of that, and enjoyed it. And then read this, and it is quite different. Not so much in the shared areas of what they covered, but in how they differed in what was left out of one volume and included in another volume. This book was published in, I think it was originally published in 1941. Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy was published in 1945, I believe. And Julian Marias's his book is only about 80 pages shorter than Bertrand Russell's book. And in Bertrand Russell's book, it covers the pre-Socratics up to early 20th century philosophy, and that's the exact same range as the text by Marias. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is because in Marias's text, he devotes over 20 pages in about a 460-page book, 480-page book. Marias devotes about 20 pages to Jose Ortega y Gasset, who isn't even mentioned in Bertrand Russell's history of philosophy. And the reason I'm emphasizing that is that while 20 pages might not sound all that long when you're talking about a tome that is some 480 pages long, but that's more space dedicated to Jose Ortega y Gasset than is dedicated to Immanuel Kant. More space dedicated to Ortega y Gasset than is dedicated to Plato or Aristotle or Descartes or any of those other figures that are regarded as fundamental from the Western tradition. And so it shows you, the stature of Ortega y Gasset in Spain, and Julian Marias is certainly giving emphasis to that, and it was something that I wouldn't have fully appreciated if I wouldn't have seen that presentation outside of the Anglo-American tradition that I was trained in. And of course I'm looking at the English translation here. I think the English translation was 1966, so it was already out for about 25 or so years before an English translation came to light. So I highly recommend this for people for the reasons I've already talked about. And the last book I'll mention here is a book of personal impact, and I'm going to identify this with a disclaimer that it was delayed impact. This is Albert Camus' Myth of Sisyphus, and the reason I'm identifying it as having delayed impact, I did read this as an undergraduate, and it didn't really impact me at the time. And I think part of the reason why it didn't impact me at the time is because I was doing my undergraduate studies at a university that kind of looked down their noses at so-called continental philosophy, and almost, begrudgingly incorporated it in the curriculum at that time. And as a result of that, as I said in an interview with a couple of years back, in an interview with Albert Camus Radio, I said something to the effect of, at the time, I was in my undergraduate years, I was, young enough to be persuaded by the strong opinions of others. And I had so many, professors that I respected kind of trying to brush me away from the continental tradition, and I listened to them. And it wasn't until about 10 or so years after I got out of grad school and had been teaching for about 10 or so years, when I returned to some of those philosophers that I had just kind of glossed over at that first pass. So the first pass of this didn't really affect me all that much. It was the second pass, after I had already completed grad school and after I'd already been teaching for about 10 or so years, when I went back and I took a second look of this and really started to develop an appreciation for Camus. And the reason why I'm including it in this video is because there are perhaps some philosophers that you've overlooked or at first pass didn't see much there, but I would encourage you to revisit some of those, because you can really expand what you're capable of enjoying in ways that you might not have fully realized. So those were the 6 books. Again, 3 professional impact and 3 professional impact. And so I'm going to bring this video to a close. Thank you for watching. And if you want more content like this, go ahead and let me know. And if you just want me to shut up and disappear and just continue to crank out memes, you can let me know that also. But for right now, I'm going to click the stop button.